What's going on, my friends? So for today's episode, I'm just going to do a comparison of the Forstner bracelet and the Uncle Seiko bracelet for my Tudor black bass. I actually did a short a couple weeks ago, and I thought that, I was just going to sort of show off the bracelets, and it turns out that there is a huge interest in both of these brands when it comes to the Jubilee bracelet. For those of you not willing to stick around, long story short, I like both of them. I think they're both fantastic quality, and both of them have their strengths and weaknesses. For me personally, I prefer the Uncle Seiko, but that doesn't mean that the Forstner is any worse. In fact, I think the Forstner bracelet is superior, but for personal preference, I like the Uncle Seiko. But without further ado, let's get into it and take a look at each of these bracelets. So right here in front of you on the left, you've got the Forstner bracelet, and on the right you have the Uncle Seiko. The immediate telltale sign is the clasp. You can see that the Forstner has a more refined and I guess better quality finished clasp, whereas the Uncle Seiko has your generic mass-produced Chinese factory clasp, which again, there's nothing wrong with that, but if Uncle Seiko wants to be on the same level as the Forstner, this I would say would be the #1 thing they need to upgrade. Let's do a 360 of the Forstner. Here we've got a mixture of a mirror polish and brushed finish. So for the center 3 links, you've got more of a chrome or mirror polish, and the outer 2 links are going to be your brushed finish. So you do get more of a dynamic visual play there. And then for the clasp, mill steel clasp, very good quality, and you've got a beautiful amount of micro adjusts. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is fantastic. I think that this is something that every single watch brand can take notes off of. Most of them, they only give you 1 to 3 micro adjusts, and I feel like this should be an industry standard. For the end links, just like with the bracelet, you've got that mirror chrome polish in the center and then brushed finish on the outside. And all in all, this is pretty good quality for what you'd expect for any bracelet at this price range. Now let's take a look at the Uncle Seiko. This one is a brushed finish throughout the entirety of the links, so the outer links and the 3 center links. Here is what it looks like on the inside. And I forgot to mention the adjustment system. So for the Uncle Seiko, it is just a standard cotter pin adjustment system. And then for the Forstner, it is a screw pin adjustment system. Again, both systems have their pros and cons. I think for the mainstream watch community, they prefer screw pins, but for me, I actually prefer pin and collar first, cotter pin second, and then screw pins last. And that's just because I've had a negative experience with one of my screw pins coming out and then dropping basically the watch fell off my wrist. And I know the solution is to use Loctite, but also Loctite is one of those things where it's an extra step that sort of it's tedious, right? So for me, when we're talking about practicality, just ease of just, set it and forget it, or pick it up and adjust it real quick without having to worry about anything, I prefer the pin and collar and then the cotter pin system. But anyways, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Getting back to the bracelet itself. Here it is, and then taking a look at the clasp, the point clasp, and milled steel as well. You only have 4 micro adjusts here, but 4, I still think 4 is a great amount of micro adjusts. It's just enough to get a perfect fit. And then taking a look at the end links, very similar to the Uncle Seiko, very similar to the Forstner. I will say they can tighten up the machining process. So here you can see a very thin lip right here, and so this on the other end link started to peel off, or actually I think it started to peel off on both of them. You can kind of see there at the end, and hopefully I'll add some more close-ups in future editing, but it peels off, so it's paper thin here. And does it affect the overall functionality of the bracelet? No, absolutely not. But it is a level of attention to detail that they can improve on to, I guess, just tighten it up, make the whole package look really good. Considering the fact that it is going on a watch that averages around $3,000 to $5,000, when you're talking about that amount of money, something like this, it just looks sloppy. Another thing to make note of when we're talking about the differences between Forstner and Uncle Seiko is you can see that tapers down fairly aggressively, whereas on the Uncle Seiko it's pretty standard throughout the entirety of the links. Some people prefer that taper, some people don't. I prefer the more steady width throughout the entirety of the bracelet, and that just kind of caters more to my body type. I have a very fat, thick wrist. My wrist averages around 7.5 to 8 inches. So having this really thin taper right here, for me personally, it doesn't really fit my taste. For other people, they like this more elegant styling, and so again, that's really just up to you on which one is better. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the diameter is, from here to there, but I'll measure that and add that in future editing. So before we end the episode, I want to show you what the bracelets look like on an actual Black Bay, just so you have a good idea of what to expect. And I also realized I forgot to do a wrist check, so let's go ahead and get that out of the way. I'm rocking my Seiko Samurai. I call it the Katana because, as you can see, it's been heavily modified. Very cool and very fun piece. But now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and put on these bracelets. I was gonna put it on the chronograph, but I've done it before, and in my opinion, the Jubilee just doesn't look right on the chronograph, so I'm just gonna stick with putting it on the Black Bay. Let's start off with putting on the Uncle Seiko bracelet first. And there you have it. That's what it looks like with the Uncle Seiko bracelet. What I like about the Uncle Seiko, as far as the overall finishing goes, is it matches perfectly with the finishing of this steel Black Bay. So, it's overall got a brushed appearance to it, and it pairs really good here. You don't have too much of that mirror polishing. Actually you have none of that mirror polishing, and so for me personally, I like that. I think it just looks really clean and matches really well. And now let's go ahead and put on the Forstner bracelet and see what you guys think about that one. And the biggest thing that I would like to emphasize here is this episode is not at all like a versus episode on which one is better. I really don't want to compare them. I'm just sharing my own personal preferences. But now that I just said that, I gotta make a comparison here. The Forstner clasp is really hands down a cut above any other clasp I've ever dealt with. One of the beautiful things about editing or post-filming editing is that you guys miss out on my sausage fingers fumbling around with these tiny spring bars like an idiot. Here we go, here it is with the Forstner bracelet. Also a beautiful Jubilee bracelet. I think the execution of this one is hands down one of the best quality Jubilee bracelets you can find on the market. So I think that pretty much sums up the topic of the Uncle Seiko and the Forstner Jubilee bracelet for the Tudor watch. I know I made it very clear what my preference was, and it was the Uncle Seiko, but that was more of a personal preference, and ultimately at the end of the day, both bracelets are fantastic. As far as price goes, they're very similarly priced. The Forstner being slightly more expensive, but I think on an emotional or mental level, if you can afford the Uncle Seiko, then you can also afford the Forstner, and which one provides better value. Personally, I'm gonna say the Forstner does, because again, it all boils down to that clasp. This is where the Forstner wins. It's exceptionally well finished and put together. The overall fit and finish and quality of it is fantastic. Whereas the clasp of the Uncle Seiko feels like your standard generic strap code strap code bracelet, which again, there's nothing wrong with it, right? I love strap code bracelets. I have a lot of them, but I would be lying to you if I said that they were, anything special. It's just standard steel straight out of a factory, with no real skill required to make something like this. Whereas this one seems like there was definitely time and love and attention put into it. So hopefully this video gives you some more insight for those of you looking for an aftermarket bracelet for your Black Bay. I guess I should add that if you are looking for an aftermarket Jubilee for your chronograph, these bracelets do fit it perfectly. So if that's your style, then go for it. It's gonna fit just fine on this chrono. But other than that, that's all I gotta say for now. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I had a blast making it, and I'll catch you guys on my next show. All right, guys, take it easy. Bye.